Now, George, I've got to ask, what's going on with the Gygax movie?
I figured you were going to ask that question.
I didn't drive to New York to ask you, or to not ask you.
Yeah, right. I'm really excited about it, and as you could probably tell, I'm a huge gamer, and I started playing in '79. So it's been 33 years. So I'm just a massive fan of Gary Gygax, and I'm very, among the many who are sad to have lost him. So I was very excited and fortunate enough to have Gary Gygax get in touch with me and talk to me about potentially writing a movie about Gary and his development of the first role-playing game ever, Dungeons & Dragons. And I interviewed with her, and she liked what I had to say, and I developed a treatment based on a lot of material she provided to me. That was, as a gamer especially, mind-blowing of how Gary created the game, just involving things I never had expected. And I had to sign an NDA, so
you can't
reveal much of that, but all of this will be in the movie, is the idea. But what's interesting about the movie too, and this was Gail's idea, was that it's not just a biopic. It's not just a straight biopic. It's a biopic / action movie. So it's not going to be something. It's going to be a mainstream movie. I mean, the idea is you're going to have a lot of fun stuff to watch. In addition to finding out this information about the development of what has now become, a billion, maybe multi-billion-dollar, I'm sure multi-billion-dollar industry when you add in World of Warcraft and Halo and all those games. But it all came from Gary sort of inventing this game. In fact, up until that point, there were 5 recognized forms of game, and role-playing is considered the 6th form of game invented by humanity. So that was Gary, and there were other people, around and doing things, but Gary was really a driving force in producing that first game and getting it out into the world. So
definitely one of the fathers of role-playing games.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited about it, or
grandfather by now.
Yeah, that's actually probably true. That's probably a good way of putting it. And it's Hollywood, so you never know what's going to happen, and a lot of things are hush hush. But what I can say is we've been moving forward. There's a producer. He's one of the top 5 producers in Hollywood right now. We love. He's fantastic. He actually plays D&D, which is great. So he totally understands. He gets what it is, and it's one of the things we were looking for. So that's a huge coup. And then we have a studio, the president of which also plays D&D.
Awesome.
And
totally.
He's very excited about it as well. So we've had 2 or 3 meetings so far, and then like I said, Hollywood shuts down. So as the end of January rolls around and everybody's back from Sundance, hopefully we'll pick that up, and we don't have anything signed yet. So, because it just takes forever for those sorts of things to happen. There's an entire business affairs department at each studio that spends a lot of time taking a lot of time. So Hollywood, it's another one of those hurry up and wait things. I wrote a treatment, haven't written the script yet, but so far everybody's on the same page in liking the treatment and the direction. And as with every movie, I'm sure it will change as we go forward and evolve. But we're all excited about it, and hopefully we'll be able to announce something officially with people, specific people, at least the producer and the studio, and potentially actors. We've definitely had some interest from actors already who would like to be in it, but we don't want to. Nothing's been settled on, so we don't want to even talk about it yet because it's too ephemeral. Things can just go away in 1 second in Hollywood, so it's not even worth talking about. But it's the only thing about it that is worth talking about is the fact that it's a good sign. There's people interested in playing the role of Gary. So for me, it's an honor to write the role, and so I'm sure for the actor it would be an honor to play the role. And it covers his whole life, so it would have to be somebody who could play a young Gary and play an old Gary and in between. So, but it's moving forward, and I'm very excited about it. I've been working on it for probably about 8 months or so, 8 or 9 months. And there's just a lot of great material in there, not just about the game, but about Gary's life. It's his life itself. So that I think people may be aware of and don't know the whole story, or even aspects of his life that they're just completely unaware of. I mean, there were things in there that I read that I didn't know about. So it's been exciting for me just as a fan to be able to get to see this material and see pieces of his original dungeon that's never been published. So it's just I just feel totally honored to be a part of it, and hopefully it's gonna be greenlit this year, and we'll start getting into pre-production and getting the script written, and I'm excited. So we'll see what happens.
Very cool. Now, when you said it's going to be true life and biographical and action adventure.
Yes.
I mean, is this going to be like in the D&D world in part?
Kind of. I mean, what we want, it's not probably not in the way that you're thinking of, but along those lines. The producer, in fact, came up with the idea of exactly how to do it. But we're gonna basically get to see the development of the D&D world, if you want to put it that way. Well, not the D&D world, I guess, but of Gary's world, of his original campaign. And so we'll get to see the evolution of it in this interesting way that I can't give away yet, but it's
I understand.
Yeah, it's a really ingenious way. It's nothing that I've ever seen done before, but we do get to, so the action is taking place in in this other world, but there's some action as well, and taking place in the real world within the movie.
Really?
Yeah, because there's.
I never thought of Gary Gygax as an action adventure kind of guy.
Well, and I hadn't either. But when I read about his life, I realized I discovered all these things about him that I didn't know, and he actually was a tough guy, and. There's some action.
Really?
There's some action in his life.
Indiana Jonesy kind of thing?
Barroom brawly kind of, yeah, in a way, yeah. Like, the big fight from
Stuff that
Raiders.
You can't really talk about. Yeah.
He was a cool guy. I mean, he really was a cool guy in every way. He was a genius. He
Without
was
a doubt.
extremely intelligent, and but also he was a man's man too. So it was for me. It was just a joy to read about these things that had gone on. It's really cool. I'm excited to put those are the things. I mean, I had to pick and choose. There's so much material that you had to pick and choose what goes in the movie. I mean, there's probably enough for 3 movies in there, but I had to pick and choose, and so I wanted to make sure to get some of the real world action into it too. So there's some surprises in there. I think people will find all totally true incidents, but fun. I think people will enjoy seeing them. Nothing where anybody gets killed or anything. But yeah, there's some fighting, and there's some chasing and interesting other moments like that.
Wow.
Police involved and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Well, is there any one thing in all the adventures that you've had over the last 25 years of gaming and TV and movies?
Yeah, I think I started playing gaming in '79, and then movies and doing TV in '96 '99. So yeah, so it's been 20, 30 years of those two things.
Is there any interesting anecdote that you'd like to just close and leave our viewers with?
That's a very good question.
Just something that you've never told anybody before. Or, if you want, you can tell how you got your first job at Paramount. But
actually at Universal.
Universal, sorry.
I'll tell you about that. So one day I decided, I'm from New York originally. I was working for West End Games, which was based at the time in Pennsylvania, although they had started in New York. And I decided I just realized I wanted to be a screenwriter. So I was able to get my boss to let me move to LA and work from there. Still work for West End Games, but be in LA. But I wanted to be a screenwriter. That was the objective. So I had to figure out, well, how do I make that happen? Well, obviously I needed to meet people. So I happened to come up with the idea to do a role-playing game based on Hercules and Xena, because I had decided that would be Xena or Hercules would be the best shows for me to do. But I thought I could do the best job at them, and I was a fan of the shows, and I knew them very well, so I picked those. I targeted those specifically. So I talked to my boss, and we didn't have a fantasy game at West End, and they said, yeah, why don't we do that? So I had this great excuse to go on the lot and look at some scripts, which I did. But going once to look at some stuff doesn't get you anywhere. So I had to figure out how to get onto the lot, multiple times and as often as possible. So I got to know people, and I got to know the lot, and I basically was able to figure out. I found this way to get to sneak onto the lot. There's a lot when you go into any movie studio lot, you have to have a pass, and if you don't, they're not letting you in. They're really high security, and so I had figured out that you could go into Universal's on one side of it. There's a street called Lancashire. So you could go into a credit union on Lancashire. It's a building. I don't know how. I think it was like nine stories. And you can go in the elevator, go to the top floor, take then a set of stairs to the roof. Now that building connected to another building on the roofs. The two roofs connected to each other with this little walkway. So I then walk across that walkway, and actually what was happening was I was crossing over the gate, and I was going to Universal. So at that building, the second building was a building on the Universal lot. And it was a fire code in LA that you couldn't lock the door of the fire exit at the time, which is actually, I believe, since changed, since 9/11. So they couldn't lock it. So then I would just open the fire exit, go down a set of stairs, get in the elevator in that building, go down to the bottom, and I'd come out right near the commissary of Universal, and I'd be on the lot. So I would just, as much as possible, go to the lot, get to know people, meet people, and eventually I got to know this guy, Brad, who I saw in the hallway one day, and he was like, "Hey, you want some cake?" I just announced I'm leaving and going on to this exciting new position, and we're having a little party. And I was like, great, yeah, that sounds fun. So I went in, I had some cake, and I said, actually, Brad, now that I think about it, I might be a good candidate for your job. And he said, oh, fantastic, we don't have anybody, send me over your resume. I said, okay, great. I went home, no idea, what to send. I called a friend of mine who works at the studio, and I was like, hey, do you know Brad? And he said, yeah, I know Brad. I said, what's his job? And so he tells he's director of marketing. I was like, oh, okay. So I, kind of fudge my resume. I'm a writer, so I fudge my resume and to emphasize the elements of marketing that I actually did do when I worked at West End. And I faxed over this resume that, said I was a marketing guy, basically, marketing and merchandising, and I did have a lot of experience with merchandising because lots of the games I worked on was merchandising rights from companies, so right. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, etc. Obviously, we had gotten the rights to those, so I did understand that, but I really emphasized it as my main thing. And I got the job, and that then got me on the lot every day without having to go through the buildings. Yeah, exactly. and that's what eventually led to my getting my first writing job on Hercules. Actually, was the first show I wrote for. So, but it was from learning how to sneak on the lot that I was able to get my first job in writing for Hollywood. So yeah, that's the anecdote. And you can't do it anymore, unfortunately, everybody. So you could try, but it's since 9/11 they've cut off that route. So yeah, but that was the way I was doing it, getting on the lot.
Will you forgive me if I ask you to, as I'm thinking about it, I gave you a movie to watch earlier. We were discussing it.
Oh yeah.
Would you mind showing that movie,
yeah.
since the friend of mine's in that, and he would love to have a
So is this in the
shameless
shot?
plug? Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. So it's my Bloody Wedding. Shameless plug for My Bloody Wedding. I'm very excited to watch it. It's been signed.
By Dave Fultz
By-
himself.
Yep. So I'm excited to go home and watch it and go out and check it out. You can get it on Amazon. Actually, I happen to know because I looked it up before I knew that John was going to be giving me a copy. It looks like a fun movie, and I worked for Sam Raimi for a while, and so I love the Evil Dead movies, Armory of Darkness, and this movie looks like just as much fun as those movies were, and maybe even a little wackier.
Definitely wackier.
Yeah, so I'm excited to check it out. So you guys should check it out too.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, George. I got to show that I'm
Yeah,
actually here
nice.
in the shot.
Yeah, no,
being
you're
in the
here.
shot with
It's not
you.
a figment of your imagination. He's actually here. I can vouch for it.
Very much. Awesome. Thank you so much,
All right.
George.
Thanks, John.
And apologize to your wife for me for having stolen so much of your time, but it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, same here.